After overcoming the Azul-Magi, the next challenge the game will force upon you is Stage 30, the Catch of the Siegfried. And much like the Magia, this is another stage that you have to complete for the Blue Mage questline. So since that's the case, here's a quick guide to not only beating Siegfried, but also getting his secret achievement. As always, when talking about Blue Mage, we have to start with the required spells, beginning with the mainstay of basically every Blue Mage loadout, Etheric Mimicry. Specifically DPS Mimicry, as we can avoid all the damage in this fight, and not taking damage is actually required to get the achievement, so we just want to focus on damage. Speaking of which, we're also going to want to bring our buffing skills of Moonflute, Bristle, and Whistle. When it comes to damage, our main source is going to be Breath of Magic, and ideally Night Bloom if possible, so we can skip the most annoying part of Act 2. After that, we're going to start filling in some boxes for the achievement because it requires you to use one of every physical and elemental damage type. For physical spells, we're going to bring Sharpened Knife, Triple Trident, and Mountain Buster. For elemental spells, we're going to bring Tingle, Eruption, Glass Dance, Sea Shanty, and finally Sonic Boom. Lastly, we'll also need to bring Exuviation as there are several binds that you need to remove in order to avoid damage. With all the required spells covered, let's get right into the fight. Starting with Act 1, we're going to begin with a Bristled Moonflute followed by a swift-casted Breath of Magic, after which we'll want to try and use as many OGCDs as possible before he finishes the Magic Drain cast, at which point we'll need to switch over to our physical attacks to avoid taking damage. Immediately after, Siegfried will begin to cast Ankle Graze, which will inflict you with a bind that needs to be removed with Exuviation, and this will likely be the last cast you're able to use before your Moonflute wears off. He'll then start casting Hyperdrive, which will drop multiple AoEs on you one after another, so just keep moving to avoid this. Next, he'll jump to the edge of the arena and begin casting Magitech Explosive, spawning several bombs throughout the arena. To avoid getting hit, we'll want to position ourselves slightly right and a bit behind the bomb directly in front of him. By doing this, when he uses Rubber Bullet, we'll be knocked into the only safe zone. He'll then use another Ankle Graze and Hyperdrive combo, but it's around this time that he should die, so you shouldn't have to see that attack. Moving on to the second act, this is likely going to be the most annoying of the three. We'll begin the act by using Whistle and Tingle, making sure to dodge the cone AoEs that the boss begins with, after which we're going to follow up with a Moonflute, a swift-casted Triple Trident, a Bristled Breath of Magic, and lastly any of the other damaging spells you have access to before your Moonflute ends. Now halfway through your Moonflute, Siegfried will begin to cast Swift Steel, spawning several AoEs, a Donut AoE, and lastly he'll knock you back. To avoid any damage, position yourself close to the middle and away from any random AoEs, then when the knockback goes off, just quickly move back to the center. Or alternatively, you can just pre-position yourself and use Surecast to avoid the knockback. Immediately after Swift Steel, he'll then cast Spark Steel, which starts by placing a lingering AoE at your location, and try to place this somewhat near the middle if at all possible. Once the Spark Steel cast finishes, several fire puddles will spawn that you'll need to avoid, followed by several ice crystals that will explode when the Shatter Steel cast finishes. To avoid this, you'll need to find the gap in the circle of ice crystals and quickly make your way to that section, making sure to hug the edge of the arena as the explosions from the ice crystals are larger than they may appear. Now, this whole section is by far the most annoying part of getting the achievement, as it's incredibly easy to get hit by one of those ice crystals. However, if you do have Night Bloom, then you'll have enough damage if used during your Moonflute to skip this section entirely. Moving on to Act 3, this one's going to be a bit different, as unlike the previous two acts, we actually need to take this one a bit slow. As to get the secret achievement, we need to kill all his clones before we kill him. With that being said, we'll start off the act by using a Bristle followed by a swift-casted Breath of Magic, after which we'll use a couple Sharpened Knives followed by another Bristle, at which point Siegfried should jump to the middle and summon his first clone, which will immediately hit with Breath of Magic, Glass Dance, Eruption, and Mountain Buster. This should be enough damage to burst the clone down before he's able to do his attack, making our lives much easier. The real Siegfried is then going to do two sets of cleaves followed by an Ankle Graze Hyperdrive combo. Just remove the bind with Exuviation and avoid the Hyperdrive AoEs like before. After the Hyperdrive, he'll do one more cleave and then jump to the middle to summon his second clone. Like before, we want to use Bristle before the clone actually spawns so that we can hit it with Breath of Magic as soon as it appears. Since this one is weak to wind, we can easily burst them down with our Sonic Boom before they're able to do their attack. Siegfried is then going to repeat the same set of attacks he did after the first clone, except this time before jumping to the middle, he'll actually cast Magic Drain, which just means you'll need to be a bit more careful with your AoE. After that cast, he'll again jump to the center and summon his last clone. Like before, you're going to want to pre-cast Bristle and then hit the clone with Breath of Magic as soon as it spawns, followed by any other OGCD abilities you have, again to burst them so they're not able to use their attack. With the last clone dead, he'll repeat the same set of attacks, but it's at this point you're safe to kill him, just be careful of that Magic Drain. With that, you should get your clear for stage 30 along with the achievement, assuming you didn't forget to use any of the spells we brought, or you didn't take any damage. Now, if you found this video helpful, please consider liking it and possibly subscribing to the channel so you know when I make new videos. Also, if you're looking to continue conquering the Carnival, then consider checking out this video I made going over the next stage, Anything Go Goes. But with that being said, thanks for watching, and I wish you the best on your Blue Mage journey.